Behind the vermilion walls of the Forbidden City, a secret world of beauty and sorrow existed. This is the hidden history of the male concubine, known as the nanchong, a figure lost in the shadow of emperors. By the end of this, you will understand the true cost of living in a gilded cage. What was it like to be chosen for your beauty, only to become a prisoner of privilege? And how did these men navigate a court where a single misstep could be fatal? What does it mean to have everything, yet own nothing? The term nanchong itself reveals a world of nuance, a title that was both an honor and a carefully constructed cage. These men were not simply part of the sprawling imperial harem, a world reserved for women. Instead, they occupied a distinct and often ambiguous space within the emperor's most trusted inner circle. Their origins trace back through the dynasties, often formalized during times when an emperor's personal affection for a male companion became an undeniable, though rarely officially acknowledged, force of court politics. So what did it take to become a nanchong? The selection process was as rigorous as it was subjective. Imperial scouts would scour the empire for young men, typically from respectable but not necessarily powerful families. They sought a very specific combination of traits. Physical beauty was the initial gateway, of course, but it was never enough. A candidate needed the delicate features of a poet, the graceful composure of a dancer, and an aura of refined elegance. Yet beyond the surface, they were tested for their artistry. Could they compose a poignant line of poetry on command, or skillfully play the kin? Their intellect was paramount, as they were expected to engage in witty conversation, discuss philosophy, and offer subtle counsel. This was the crucial difference between their role and that of a female consort. A nanchong was not primarily chosen for the possibility of producing an heir. His value was measured in companionship, cultural sophistication, and the private solace he could provide to the most powerful man in the realm. He was a living work of art, a confidant, and a status symbol, all bound into one. For a chosen few, the life of a nanchong shimmered with unimaginable privilege. They resided in opulent quarters within the palace complex, wore robes of the finest silks, and dined on delicacies unknown to the outside world. Their most significant power, however, was their proximity to the emperor himself. In the quiet hours, they might whisper a suggestion that could sway a minor appointment or gently advocate for a favored poet. A beautifully timed verse or a shared moment of laughter could, in theory, bend the ear of absolute power. This was the intoxicating illusion, the glittering surface of their existence. But beneath that surface lay a far harsher reality. Every moment was a performance. There was an unrelenting pressure to be perpetually charming, intellectually sharp, and artistically brilliant. A nanchong was not a free man with influence. He was a prized possession whose only purpose was to please. His entire world was confined to the palace walls, a gilded cage where he could not leave without permission, where his every movement was observed, and where his family, his past, and his own name were often left far behind. His comfort, his status, even his life, hung on the fragile thread of the emperor's favor. What good are silks and jewels when you are, in the eyes of the court, merely another beautiful object in the imperial collection, one that could be replaced as easily as it was acquired? This precarious existence created a constant, low hum of anxiety. A single misstep, a poorly received poem, a moment of perceived boredom, or simply the emperor's shifting mood could shatter the illusion in an instant. The luxurious gifts were not signs of secure favor, but rather tools of a system designed to keep him compliant and forever grateful. Can you imagine the psychological weight of living under such conditions, where every day is an audition for your own survival, and your only true possession is the performance itself? This glittering cage was also a stage for brutal political games. A male concubine's intimate access to the emperor made him a constant target. Court officials and powerful eunuchs viewed his influence with deep suspicion and jealousy. He was an outsider who had bypassed the traditional routes to power, and his presence threatened established alliances. Every whispered conversation was seen as potential manipulation, every gift from the emperor a shift in the balance of power. The nanchong was a pawn in a much larger, more dangerous contest, and his life depended on navigating a court where his greatest privilege was also his gravest liability. His fate was a mirror of the emperor's own. When the emperor was strong and his favor was clear, the concubine enjoyed a semblance of safety. But if the emperor's power wavered, or if his affections simply shifted, the fall was swift and often fatal. Consider the story of Dongxian, a chancellor during the Han Dynasty. His relationship with Emperor Ai was so intense that the emperor compared their bond to that of a ruler and his minister in a legendary story about a cut sleeve. Dongxian's rise was meteoric. He was showered with honors, wealth, and unprecedented political authority, effectively becoming the second most powerful man in the empire. But this dizzying ascent was built on sand. When Emperor Ai died suddenly, the entire court turned against Dongxian. He was stripped of his titles immediately. Understanding the grim fate that awaited him, and with no protector left, Dongxian and his wife took their own lives on the very same day. His entire family was then persecuted, their property seized. His story is a stark lesson in the absolute dependency that defined these men. They possessed no real power of their own, only borrowed authority that vanished the moment their patron was gone. What use is a palace full of gold when your entire world can collapse between sunrise and sunset? The fall of a favorite was not just a personal tragedy, it was a political message, a brutal display meant to warn others who might try to climb too high, too fast. This borrowed authority came with a profound and private cost, a deep loneliness that silks and poetry could never soothe. Imagine the complete severance from everything you once knew. A nanchong was taken from his family, often while still a teenager, and brought into a world of impossible splendor and constant scrutiny. He could not visit his childhood home. He could not share his triumphs or fears with old friends. Letters were monitored, if they were allowed at all. His entire existence was redefined within the palace walls, leaving his past life as a ghost he could never revisit. This enforced isolation was a deliberate tool designed to make the emperor his entire world, his only source of validation and love. But what does that do to a person's sense of self? His identity became a performance, a carefully crafted character designed to please. The young man who loved his family, who had his own dreams and quirks, was slowly buried beneath the persona of the perfect companion. Every glance, every word, every brushstroke was a calculated act. This created a devastating internal conflict. To survive, he had to suppress his own emotions and desires, yet his survival depended on performing an intimacy that felt real. The relationship with the emperor was the core of this torment. We must understand this dynamic was not one of equals. It was a bond between absolute power and absolute dependency. While genuine affection might have existed, it was always layered with coercion. The emperor held the power of life and death. How could any expression of love be truly free when one person can destroy the other with a single word? This created a constant internal struggle between the need for survival and the longing for personal integrity. Could he ever be sure his feelings were his own, or were they just another survival instinct, another part of the performance? Society outside the palace walls amplified this inner shame. While the imperial court might have tolerated these relationships with a silent nod, the wider Confucian society viewed them with deep disdain. A man was meant to marry, have children, and continue his family line. By becoming a nanchong, he was stepping outside that sacred order. He was an object of gossip and scorn, a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and beauty. Even in his moments of greatest luxury, he likely carried the heavy weight of that societal judgment, knowing that, for all his privilege, he was seen by many as less than a man. He lived in a gilded cage, yes, but he was also trapped within himself, forced to negotiate a daily battle between the person he had to be and the person he might have become. The greatest tragedy was not the potential for a dramatic fall from power, but this slow, quiet erosion of the soul, a lifetime spent wearing a mask that eventually becomes your only face. Their stories ultimately reveal a stark equation of power. For every moment of dazzling privilege, there was an equal measure of peril. These men lived at the very center of the world, yet they possessed no true center of their own. Their existence was a paradox, a life of immense luxury built upon a foundation of profound personal tragedy. They were human mirrors, reflecting the glory and the absolute solitude of the emperor himself, and their fates were a direct consequence of the system they served. When we look beyond the silks and the poetry, we see the human cost of a world where one person holds all the cards. The story of the nanchong is not just a curious footnote from ancient China. It is a timeless reminder of the price paid when human beings become instruments of power, when beauty and talent are commodified, and when a person's entire worth is determined by the fleeting favor of another. History is filled with such hidden narratives, stories of individuals lost to the grand sweep of empires and dynasties. Their voices may be silenced, but their absence speaks volumes about the complexities of the past. What other forgotten lives do you think are waiting to be remembered? Share your thoughts on these hidden histories in the comments below.